Okay, so in this video we're looking at hunger and eating. Now, you might be wondering why we are looking at hunger in a chapter on motivation and emotion. You might even be wondering why we're even looking at hunger in a psychology class. Hunger is one of our most basic drives, and it's one of the most difficult for us to ignore. Chances are that if you're hungry, you also find it extremely difficult to concentrate on anything else. So it's definitely influencing what's going on in our mind. We're also looking at it because when we feel hungry, despite the fact that we feel it in our stomachs, that's not actually where that feeling is coming from. It's being triggered by our brain. Okay. So we're going to go through this process on a very shallow level. There is much more to this, but this is the level that I want you to know it at this point. So if we haven't eaten in a while, our blood sugar level will drop. Okay, when that happens, our fat cells will then start releasing fat, which our body can use for fuel until we eat again. Ideally, our brain and our body want sugar, but they'll use fat in the meantime. Now, these changes are then detected by the hypothalamus. Now, remember, the hypothalamus is the part of the brain involved in homeostasis. It's trying to maintain balance. It's picking up messages about what's going on in the body, and it's sending messages about which hormones need to be released. So the hypothalamus detects these changes. It detects our blood sugar level dropping and fat being released for fuel. And then it triggers a series of events which lead to the feeling of hunger and motivate our eating behavior. Now, after we've eaten, our blood sugar level increases. And at this point, the pancreas and the liver will send signals to shut off hunger and eating. So as food is passing through the gastrointestinal tract, that then sends the message to fat cells to release leptin. And leptin is a satiety hormone. So satiety signals are sent to the brain that leads to satiation, this feeling of fullness and satisfaction. And that's what stops us from then eating further. Now, an interesting point is that you might feel full, but you might not necessarily feel satisfied. And that really depends on whether what you ate satisfied your body's needs at that point in time. So let's say at that point in time, your body really needs protein, but you just eat a bunch of carbs, you're probably not going to feel satisfied afterwards. You might feel full, but you still have that feeling of like you want something more. So pay attention to those feelings, because that could be your body's way of saying, I need this, like I need a vegetable, or I need sugar, or I need more fat, or whatever it is your body needs, it's finding a way to tell you that. If you've met those needs, then yes, you feel full and you feel satisfied. Now, I want to focus on what's going on in the hypothalamus, because different parts of the hypothalamus have different roles when it comes to hunger and eating. So you see here we've got the green parts are the lateral hypothalamus, and then the red parts are the ventromedial hypothalamic nucleus, and they each have different jobs. The lateral hypothalamus is our hunger center. So when those messages are being sent to the hypothalamus that our blood sugar level is dropped, we need to eat, that part becomes activated and that increases our appetite. Now, the reason we know that the activation of this part of the brain increases appetite is because in animal studies, if you damage that part, they will completely lose interest in food. They will stop eating to the point of starvation and death. So that feeling of needing to eat, having an appetite, is dependent on activation of this part of the brain. And once we've finished eating, it's then the ventromedial hypothalamic nucleus which takes over, so that's the satiety center. That becomes activated, and at that point our appetite declines. And again, we know this because in animal studies, if you damage that part of the brain, that will lead to overeating. And so they will just eat and eat and eat to the point of obesity. There will be, I think, one question on the exam about this. So just remember which part of the hypothalamus is responsible for either increasing appetite or decreasing appetite.